Hi everybody, welcome to part 3. This is more on the 3D side and the rendering, and then we will be moving on to the comp side. So to begin with, I found a 3D model of a car, quite nice car. It didn't come UV'd annoyingly, so I had to group everything, like license plate, wheel caps and all that. So I went through everything, I UV'd everything. Some of them I just did some basic automatic UVing because I knew you wouldn't see it from where I shot the plate from. I set up a basic lighting rig, and then I went into the materials. The car paint, I just set up basic materials. I used Arnold's AI standard. No, AI standard surface. It has a car paint preset, but obviously I didn't use like the standard preset. I obviously modified it. And I think that's key into making something look realistic. You can start with the base and then work on that and break it up. So all I did was added noises and displacements here and there. So the displacements were to add some wobble to the panels, and I added some specular breakup with some textures of scratches, something that you would see on a car. And I went through and did everything relating to that. So if we just look at the render, I'll just refresh it. You can see we've got some nice looking detail. I'm getting some nice specular pings, which is exactly what I want. Some nice breakup on the actual roughness of the car. So you can see it's quite nice breakup. Now I think in my final render I did turn this down a little bit, and I upped the specular reflections just to look more realistic in the actual scene. But I did a turntable of this. I did some iterations on it just so everything wasn't, you know, a preset kind of deal. So yeah, from this, when I got to a point where I was happy with how the car shader was, obviously I turned down the lights because they weren't looking as realistic as I wanted in my final thing. But after this, I saved this, and then I brought it into the actual scene with all my camera tracking and data. So I will jump to that scene and I'll see you there. This is my scene that I created. So if I go through the camera's perspective, you can see this is the footage that I tracked, and we went through that whole process. I set up the lights in the general area, and I did that with some help of the locators that I got from Synthesize. So I placed the car in the right area in the parking bay. If I go out of that, you can see I've got a rough HDR from my phone. It's not a exact HDR because it's not that high dynamic, but it's more of a basis to get lighting information. And then I placed lighting in the correct areas. So these two lights were this one and this one. So you can see these two. I've got these two to emulate that, and that one at the back over there. And then I've got more of a fill, and then I've got my actual HDR for the reflections and general ambient lighting. So if I look through the camera and I do a quick render, just refresh that. So now I've got the car in the general area, the lighting and reflections look great. But one thing that I thought would be a nice touch is adding the reflection of my partner walking. So to do that, I just did a simple card. Okay, so this was before I did any roto, and I essentially keyed as much as I could off the original plate, And when I did that, I put it on a card in 3D and I just animated the card to follow the general direction of where she was walking. And that's in the correct 3D space of where she was actually walking, because everything's to scale. The reason for this is I want to get her reflection in the car. It's not the exact reflection. For the most part, it will help in selling that she's actually there. So it looks funny from this view, but if we go back into the Arnold render view and we refresh, you will begin to see her reflections over here. If I were to drag through, you can see that that's her walking. I think that adds some more realism in blending it within the scene, because now I've actually got her reflection walking within the car. So you can see in the chrome on there, it's reflecting back where she's walking. And because this is all to scale and in 3D space, the reflection works quite nicely once it's rendered and everything. Yeah, from there I essentially set up light groups. So in my actual HDR and lights, I've got a AOV light group, and I've set up the RGB light group to point to those, and then yeah, essentially I've just got normals, position, light groups, UV, Z, any cryptomats and specular, just to change it in comp. So if I were to refresh this, so my light groups, there's 1, 2, so 2's that one over there, 3, and it just gives me more control in comp if need be. So yeah, I've got that, I've got my normals, got my position of where she is, well, where the car is in 3D space, got my UVs, Z, if I just bring that down, you can see that's my Z pass. I've got my specular, direct, transmission. Yeah, so I've got that all set up. I rendered that out. It took not that long. It was 4K, so I got some nice detail. Yeah, I think that covers pretty much the 3D side. There's not much more apart from placing the car, lighting it, and then just playing around with the lights just to get the lighting as close as I could. Yeah, I rendered that out, and then we move into comp, so I'll see you in that video. Bye.